Hey guys, JC Theater Yu-Gi-Oh here with a Vendread deck profile for you today. This is my first deck profile on the channel, and though it will not be my main focus of the channel, I do have quite a decent amount of decks that I'd like to show off. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, despite this being a Vendread deck, it only actually has 13 of the Vendread cards. Now, first we want to start off with 3 of the main man himself, Vendread Slayer. Now, he does have a battle effect, which doesn't really matter at all. What matters with him is that when he's ritual summoned, if he's sent to the graveyard, you can send 1 Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard and add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. Now, this not only sets up plays for the future, but also loads your graveyard with zombies, which, as we all know, is something zombies really like. Now, this is important because it says when he leaves the field, which in this deck we're focusing on synchro summoning as well as link summoning. Both help achieve this goal. In addition to Vendread Slayer, we're playing 2 more ritual monsters, 1 Battle Lord and 1 Executor. Now, Battle Lord is basically a failed Shockmaster. The only real reason why he's good is because he's similar to Slayer, but instead, when he's ritual summoned and sent to the graveyard, you can add a ritual monster from your deck to your hand and then send a Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard. An Executor is kind of a cool 3k beater almost in a sense. I just like running it in the deck because this is supposed to be a Vendread deck, and he's kind of not the ace monster, but like the big bad boy of the bunch, you know? Now, we're only running 3 other Vendread monsters, and that is Core, Striges, and then Houndhorde. Now, Core is, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 other zombie monster from your graveyard and special summon him. So, of course, you'd want to send him to the graveyard just to get another body on board for an extra level in a synchro play, or just an extra body for some link plays. Now, Vendread Striges is, when he's sent to the graveyard, you can reveal a Vendread card in your hand and special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. Now, Striges, I'm not using this for its actual effect, but rather that it's a level 2 Vendread, which we'll see in a sec why the levels are important. And the same thing basically goes for Vendread Houndhorde as well. Now, they each also give an extra effect if they're used for the ritual summon of a Vendread monster. Core, your opponent cannot target that ritual summon monster with card effects. Striges, if he's battling an opponent's monster, you can draw a card and then discard a card. And then Vendread Houndhorde, once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 spell or trap your opponent controls, banish it. So that's kind of cool, doesn't come up much, but the reason why you run these guys is to use this, Vendread Evolution. It's basically similar to Lunalight Fusion or Shaddoll Fusion, but a ritual card. You can use a Vendread card in your deck as well as zombie monsters from your hand or field. So the only reason I play a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 is because I use a lot of different levels in this deck for the synchro plays. So in order to, make the actual appropriate levels of the ritual monsters, you kind of have to run the gamut of 1 through 3. This is pretty good, but I only played it 2 because you can only use it once per turn, and since I do only run 3 Vendread monsters in the deck, it doesn't come up as much. Next up, I play 3 Vendread Origin. Now, this is the main ritual card of the Vendread deck. Since this says the card name Vendread Slayer, you can actually use pre-preparation of rites in order to search this out, as well as Slayer, which is why I run 3 of each. Now, pre-prep is such a good card because the biggest thing with ritual decks that really hinders their consistency is the fact that you need both the ritual monster and the ritual spell in your hand, and this is a single card that gets to both of them. So it's definitely important you run 3 of this, as well as 3 Slayer and 3 Vendread Origin. Another thing to note on Vendread Origin is that you can banish zombies from your graveyard as part of the tribute for the ritual summon, which is definitely a good thing in a zombie deck. Okay, so next up we're going to look at the tuners of the deck. Now first up with this is going to be Glow Up Bloom. Usually a part of Zombie World strategies, the first part of his effect is actually why I run him. Now, if he's sent to the graveyard, you can banish him from that graveyard and add one level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your hand. Now, the reason I play this is because you can either link him away, use him for a synchro, or since if this card is sent to the graveyard, which means by any means, you can even send him from deck with your different effects to the graveyard in order to add one of your just previously shown Vendread ritual monsters to your hand. I know this is a little bit of a convoluted way to get there, but I just thought it was kind of a fun choice to use in this ritual strategy. Next up is going to be Shiranui's Spectral Sword. Basically synchro summon from your graveyard with him. Next up is going to be Plague Spreader Zombie. Again, level 2 zombie tuner. And if he's in your graveyard, you can place a card from your hand on top of the deck, and you can special summon him, but then banish him when he leaves the field. Now next up is one of the newer additions to this deck, which came out in Savage Strike. Shinobi Necro. Now he's interesting because if another zombie monster is special summoned from your graveyard, which happens a lot in this deck, while you control him, you can draw one card, then discard one card. If this card is in the graveyard and is banished face up to activate an effect, or buy an effect, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. Now this is interesting because sometimes you do come across some cards that have to banish zombies in the graveyard. For instance, even your ritual spell card to bring out one of your Vendread monsters, and then he can just be special summoned out, and then you can link away him and Vendread Slayer, and then add a ritual spell to your hand, and then send a Vendread from your deck to the graveyard. So it's a neat little combo. I do like him, and I also quite enjoy his draw and then discard effect as well. Overall, a very good card, but I wouldn't run more than one. The final tuner I play, I actually run 2 copies of, and that is Unizombie. Now, the man, the myth, the legends, who do not need any introduction, but for those of you who do not know what he does, you can target one face-up monster on the field, including himself, and discard a card, hopefully a zombie, and if you do, increase that target's level by 1. You can target one face-up monster on the field, again, including himself, and increase that target's level by 1, and then this turn, you can't attack except with zombie monsters, which actually puts a damper on this deck because I'm not playing too many zombies in the extra. And then you can send one zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, increase that target's level by 1. You can either make this a level 5 tuner, or make other cards increase their levels, or do whatever you want, and you don't even have to use both effects. You can use each effect once per turn. Now, though he is not a tuner, sometimes when thinking about my count of tuners that are in this deck, I consider this 3 more copies of Unizombie, and that is Shiranui Solitaire. Now, he's interesting because you can tribute one zombie type monster and special summon one zombie tuner with 0 defense from your deck. Now, that's the main reason we play him, and the thing that's interesting is he's a zombie monster. You can summon him, tribute himself, and then bring out Unizombie. Simple as that. Though I mainly use him to bring out Unizombie, you can also use him to bring out Shiranui's Spectral Sword, as well as Glow Up Bloom. So, no matter what the situation is, you more than likely always have a target for this guy to go through. My last 3 one-of monsters in the deck are Zombie Master, which is always good in a zombie strategy. Once per turn, you can send one monster card from your hand to the graveyard and target one level 4 or lower zombie type monster in either player's graveyard and special summon that target. Now, of course he'd be better in a zombie world strategy, but he's basically a monster reborn, and even though hand advantage is important, if I can get a zombie monster in the graveyard and special summon a zombie monster from the graveyard, this guy's definitely a keeper. Next up is Armageddon Knight. He does send a dark monster to the graveyard, which we do have quite a bit of that. Also note that this is a 44 card deck that I'm using, because I just can't seem to part with any of the pieces of this thing, but if you were to try to cut to make it more of the standard 40 cards, he would definitely be one to go. The final card is Shiranui Spirit Master. Now, I quite enjoy him staying in the deck because, spoiler alert, and I'll just show them now, kind of a deviation from the normal deck profile. the only two traps I run in this deck are Shiranui style Swallow Slash. Now with this bad boy, you contribute one zombie type monster, and then you target 2 cards on the field and destroy them. And then you can banish one Shiranui monster from your deck. Now even though you can only use one of these per turn, it's quite good. Now, all you need is just one zombie type monster on the field, you tribute it, and then you not only pop 2 cards, like any 2 cards on the field, which usually you would pick your opponent's cards, but when Spirit Master is banished, this is who you'll pick to banish with this card's effect, you can pop another face-up card. Now the last 6 zombies are some classic staples and some new edition staples, but ultimately I very much enjoy them in any zombie deck I can fit them into. And that is, of course, Mizuki and Gozuki. Now I run 3 of each, but I'm keeping this window open so I could read his effect. Now, Mizuki, simple zombie staple. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one zombie monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Gozuki, during your main phase, you can send one zombie type monster from your deck to the graveyard. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish one zombie type monster from your graveyard except Gozuki and special summon one zombie type monster from your hand. Now some more one of hype up in here is going to be my spell lineup, which has 1 card destruction. Next up, Book of Life. Now, Book of Life is interesting to me because it's basically a Monster Reborn, just like the original bad boy himself, Monster Reborn. 1 for 1, again. You can set up the graveyard a little bit by sending a monster from your hand to the graveyard, and then you can special summon 1 level 1 monster from your hand or deck. Usually I go into Glow Up Bloom. Now the final spell card that I play as a 1 of is of course the Foolish Burial. The effect, send 1 monster from your deck to the graveyard, is usually a very good thing in a zombie strategy. Now the final spell card period that I play is 3 copies of this guy, Burial from a Different Dimension. This guy's crazy if you have Mizuki banished, because then you can just do more plays with banishing him since he's not once per turn, because when the card was made, they didn't really think you'd be able to get him out of the banish zone, or I guess removed from play zone back in the day. Now starting with the Link monsters, we have the very affluent zombie Link monster, Vampire Sucker. Now the main thing I use this gal for is that if a zombie monster is special summoned from either graveyard once per turn, draw a card. It's as simple as that. Next is just some simple kind of Link climby monsters, I guess. The One Nightmare Cerberus and One Nightmare Phoenix, as well as a Proxy Dragon, an Underclock Taker, and then a Summon Sorceress. Now I'm going in level order with these synchro monsters, so first up is the only level 6 Coral Dragon. Now you can also swap this out with Stardust Charge Warrior, which lets you basically draw a card when he's summoned, whereas Coral Dragon here lets you draw a card when he is removed from the field somehow. So whether you link with him or just synchro climb a little bit, either way he's good. I don't really use him too much, but he is another draw, which is always good, and plus he's a tuner himself, so he really does help with synchro climbing sometimes. The next up is the level 7 Shooting Riser Dragon, the Shonen Jump promo. If he's synchro summoned, you can send 1 monster from your deck to the graveyard whose level is lower than his level, so basically a level 6 or lower monster. And then he reduces his level by that amount. And you can't activate any card that has that monster's name that you sent to the graveyard. You can't activate their effect that turn. The next level 7 I play is F.A. Don Dragster. Kind of self-explanatory. He's basically just a little negation. We don't really have many negations in this deck, so he's definitely a good bonus. Next up is the level 7 Black Rose Dragon. Now, this is just basically a board wipe. Next up is Cyber's Quantum Dragon. Now this card's pretty good because when you control a Link monster, monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters you control for attacks except this one. And next, once per turn, at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can return that opponent's monster to the hand, and also this card can make a second attack in a row. Next up, the first level 8 monster is Borreload Savage Dragon. This is a natural addition since we Link and Synchro Summon. Now, if this card is Synchro Summon, you can equip one Link monster from your graveyard to this card, and if you do, place Borrel counters on this card equal to that Link monster's Link rating. Now, he gains attack equal to half of the attack of the monster equipped to it by this effect. Now, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can remove one Borrel counter from this card and negate the activation. The next level 8 is going to be Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. Once per turn, you can destroy as many special summoned effect monsters on the field as possible with attack less than or equal to this card's, and then inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. The final card in the extra deck, which as many of you were probably wondering where he was at, is the level 8 Psyframe Lord Omega. He's limited, but he's always been good in zombie decks. Once per turn during your main phase, you can banish both this face-up card from the field and one random card from your opponent's hand face-up until your next standby phase. Once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, you can target one banished card and return it to the graveyard. If this card is in the graveyard, you can target one other card in the graveyard, shuffle both that card and this card from the graveyard into the deck. So I hope you guys like my Vendread deck profile. I know it's not really oriented to the goal that Vendreads have in mind. It's definitely more geared towards Link summoning and Synchro summoning. But honestly, just because you're not following what a deck really wants, I feel as long as you're giving it somewhat of a fair representation within the deck, it's more valid in a sense. I don't know, I just really like this deck, and I know this deck profile wasn't perfect. This was my first one. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning of this video. It's really late right now. This is kind of like the afterwards, so you could probably click off the video now, but tell me what you guys think. I gotta improve my lighting. My setup for my camera right now, which is my phone, is very weird, so I'll definitely be getting better lighting and better setup as time goes on. School's still kicking my butt, but it's almost the end of the semester, and then I'll be focusing more on this. What else? This is my second Yu-Gi-Oh video, Yu-Gi-Tube video. I hope you guys like this. Like I said, this deck isn't perfect. The point of this deck profile was just to get your creative juices flowing, because I feel as though I could be showing off like my prank kids, my Luna lights, like all the stuff that I've seen plenty of videos on, or I could show you guys this first and then show you guys those more common deck profiles a little later. So stay fresh, guys. If you like what you saw, or if you believe that I can get better from criticism, constructive or otherwise, subscribe now so you can see how better I get in the future. Bye. Oh, and thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe.